Latin 2, Grammar for Chapter 5, Latin for the New Millennium, Level 2, 2nd edition, Part 1 of the Chapter 5 Grammar, Formation and Use of the Perfect and Pluperfect Passive Subjunctive. Long ago, we learned the perfect passive indicative. Indicative forms of verbs are the first forms of verbs we learned when we started learning Latin. Indicative forms of verbs are used to point to things out in the real world. It's easy to form. It's just the present indicative of sum es est, summus estis sint, along with the perfect passive participle, that is the fourth principal part of a verb. Here's amo, amari, amavi, amatum in the perfect passive indicative. Amatus, amata, amatum sum. I was loved, I have been loved. Remember, the perfect can be translated two ways into English. It can be translated as a simple past, and it can also be translated with the auxiliary verb have, forming the English present perfect tense. Amatus, amata, amatum es. You were loved, you have been loved. Amatus, amata, amatum est. He, she, or it was loved. He, she, or it has been loved. Amati, amatai, amata sumus. We were loved, we have been loved. Amati, amatai, amata estis. Y'all have been loved, y'all were loved. Amati, amatai, amata sunt. They were loved, they have been loved. All verbs form the perfect passive indicative in the same way. Remember, there are not separate conjugations for perfect forms of Latin verbs. The separate conjugations, that is, first conjugation, second conjugation, third IO conjugation, and fourth conjugation, are irrelevant for perfect forms. All verbs form perfect forms in the same way. Here's copio, capri, capi, coptum in the perfect passive indicative. It is formed exactly the same way that the perfect passive indicative is formed for amo. Captus, capta, captum sum. I was captured, I have been captured. Captus, captu, captum es. You were captured, you have been captured. Captus, captu, captum est. He, she, or it has been captured. He, she, or it was captured. Capti, captai, capta sumus. We were captured, we have been captured. Capti, captai, capta estis. Y'all were captured, y'all have been captured. Capti, captai, capta sunt. They were captured, they have been captured. The perfect passive subjunctive is easy to form. Just turn the present indicative forms of sum, that is, sum es est, summus estis sunt, in the perfect passive indicative forms we just did, into the present subjunctive, that is, sim, sis, sit, simus, situs, sint. Here's amo, amari, amavi, amatum in the perfect passive subjunctive. Amatus, amata, amatum sim. Amatus, amata, amatum sis. Amatus, amata, amatum sit. Amati, amatai, amatai simus. Amati, amatai, amatai situs. Amati, amatai, amata sint. You may notice that I'm not translating these verb forms. That's because the correct translation into English from a Latin subjunctive depends on the context. There is no one set translation for the subjunctive. You only know how to translate a subjunctive when you actually see it in context. All verbs form the perfect passive subjunctive in the same way. Here's copio, capere, capi, coptum in the perfect passive subjunctive. It will form exactly like the perfect passive subjunctive of amo, amari, amavi, amatum. Coptus, copta, coptum sim. Coptus, copta, coptum sis. Coptus, copta, coptum sit. Copti, coptai, copta simus. Copti, coptai, copta situs. Copti, coptai, copta sint. Some time ago, we learned the pluperfect passive indicative. It's easy to form. It's just the imperfect indicative of sum, the imperfect indicative of sum, eram, eras, erat, eramos, eratus, erant, along with the perfect passive participle, the fourth principal part of a verb. Here's amo, amari, amavi, amatum in the pluperfect passive indicative. Amatus, amatua, amatum, eram. That's I had been loved. Remember, the pluperfect is translated with the English tense that has a had as an auxiliary in it. Amatus, amata, amatum eras. You had been loved. Amatus, amata, amatum erat. He, she, or it had been loved. Amati, amatai, amata eramus. We had been loved. Amati, amatai, amata eratus. Y'all had been loved. Amati, amatai, amatai erant. They had been loved. All verbs form the pluperfect passive indicative in the same way. Here's copio, capere, capi, coptum in the pluperfect passive indicative. It will form exactly like the pluperfect passive indicative of amo, amari, amavi, amatum. Coptus, copta, coptum eram. I had been captured. Coptus, copta, coptum eras. You had been captured. Coptus, copta, coptum erat. He had been captured. Copti, coptai, copta eramus. We had been captured. Copti, coptai, copta eratus. Y'all had been captured. Copti, coptai, copta erant. They had been captured. The pluperfect passive subjunctive is easy to form. Just turn the imperfect indicative forms of sum in the pluperfect passive, that is, eram, eras, erat, eramos, eratus, erant, into the imperfect subjunctive. So you change those forms into essem, esses, esset, essemos, essetis, essent. Here's amo, amari, amavi, amatum in the pluperfect passive subjunctive. Amatus, amata, amatum, essem. Amatus, amata, amatum, esses. Amatus, amata, amatum, esset. Amati, amatai, amata, essemos. Amati, amatai, amata, essetis. Amati, amatai, amata, essent. All verbs form the pluperfect passive subjunctive in the same way. Here's copio, capere, capi, coptum in the pluperfect passive subjunctive. Coptus, copta, coptum essem. Coptus, copta, coptum esses. Coptus, copta, coptum esset. Copti, coptai, copta essemos. Copti, coptai, copta essetis. Copti, coptai, copta essent. The perfect passive subjunctive and the pluperfect passive subjunctive are used just like the perfect active subjunctive and the pluperfect active subjunctive we learned last week. The perfect passive subjunctive is used in indirect questions in primary sequence, that is, after a primary sequence main verb, that is, a verb in the present or the future, to indicate action before the main verb. Here we have, I know who was captured. This in Latin is scio quis captus sit. Scio, I know, quis, who, captus sit, was captured. This is an indirect question, quis captus sit, who was captured, and its verb must be in the subjunctive. In Latin, all conjugated verbs in indirect questions have to be in the subjunctive. So, captus sit must be in the subjunctive. Scio is in primary sequence. It's a present tense verb, so that means we have a choice between the present and the perfect subjunctive, and that's it. We use the perfect subjunctive here because this action is before the scio. The pluperfect passive subjunctive is used in indirect questions in secondary sequence, that is after a secondary sequence main verb, that is a past tense verb, to indicate action before the main verb. So, sciebam quis captus esset means I knew who had been captured. Who had been captured is an indirect question. In Latin, that's quis captus esset. Esset. Who had been captured? The verb must be in the subjunctive because it's an indirect question. We're in secondary sequence because sciebam is a past tense verb. We use the pluperfect here because this action is before the main verb, sciebam. You may remember that the pluperfect subjunctive active is also used for wishes for pastime. For instance, if only the soldiers had captured the king. In Latin, that's utinam milites regem cepissent, right? That's a pluperfect active subjunctive being used in a wish for pastime. Of course, the pluperfect passive subjunctive can be used that way too. If only the king had been captured, utinam rex captus esset. Here is the pluperfect passive subjunctive. If only the king had been captured. The end.